Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Kerr, back here with Alex Meyer, discussing our predictions for this year's Emmy nominations. We've already discussed the comedy categories. Now we're moving on to the drama series categories. So we're doing the same thing as we did in the previous Slugfest, where we go back and forth and starting with reading off our rankings. So, Alex, I believe it's your turn to read off your current rankings for nomination predictions in the drama series categories.
Sure. So I have, in this order, The Handmaid's Tale, Game of Thrones, This Is Us, Stranger Things, The Crown, Westworld, and The Americans.
Okay, I have those same 7 shows getting in. In fact, this year, if those are the exact nominees, this will be the first time since 2009 that every single drama series nominees were returning programs and no first-year show in contention at all.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps Killing Eve could make a surprise nomination, given how much critical acclaim it's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But BBC America shows aren't always on the Emmys radar, so that could probably hurt it, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only one I could potentially see sneaking in. But as for my rankings, I have The Handmaid's Tale, which is currently wrapping up its 2nd season. Well, of course, I believe the last 3 episodes of season 2 won't be eligible, but the first 10 are. And Game of Thrones in 2nd, so it'll be interesting to see how this battle of the reigning champions turns out. I mean, Game of Thrones aired its most recent season last year, while Handmaid's Tale, again, is currently wrapping up its 2nd season, so will obviously be more fresh in voters' minds. And in 3rd place, I actually have Westworld, given that, it recently ended its 2nd season, so it should be interesting to see if it does better this time around than it did last year. 4th place, Stranger Things. 5th place, The Crown. 6th place, This Is Us. I mean, I guess the reason I don't have it higher, again, it should be interesting to see if it will actually get nominated in drama, directing, and or writing this year, unlike last year, pretty much because they submitted so many episodes and they pretty much all canceled each other out. So if it does at least gain a directing or writing nomination, then I'll probably have it ranked higher up in my final predictions for the winners. And 7th place, well, is The Americans. Even though it was left off last year, I think with the absence of Better Call Saul, which is on hiatus, and House of Cards, pretty much because they're revamping their final season to get Kevin Spacey completely out of the picture. I think The Americans will return this year, especially since this is the final season, and I don't think it'll be, well, I'll be surprised if it ends up winning in the end, but yeah, I do have it returning for the final season.
Not to mention that its final season, particularly its finale, was quite well acclaimed, because often final seasons of shows can either make or break it. And, there's nothing that people hate more in a great show than having like a lackluster finale. But it seems that the finale did its job according to most critics.
Yeah.
And was unpredictable as well. Like, you thought it would go one way, but then it went another. But the main reason why I have This Is Us way up higher is, first of all, its surprise win for ensemble in a drama series at the SAG Awards.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Obviously, all the actors in the actors branch at the TV Academy are obviously SAG voters too, so obviously they're paying attention to the show. Plus, I think This Is Us has managed to avoid the dreaded sophomore slump that often happens to a lot of great TV shows. In fact, I think This Is Us has only grown more since its first season, both in terms of viewership and overall acclaim, because I think we're going to see a lot more actors from the show get nominated this year, which we'll be getting to shortly.
Yes, and I'm also currently predicting that.
Mm-hmm. And I just think This Is Us, just the phenomenon of the show is just, it's still strong as it was last year. And I don't think, like, there was a lot of buzz in this show before it even premiered, but it wasn't until when it actually premiered and we saw how everything was literally connected to each other that it made people want to keep coming back again and again. And it seems like this phenomenon kind of reminds me of the Friends phenomenon back in the mid to late 90s.
Another NBC program.
Well, just not just that, but also just the fact that like it
Well,
was
I
like
was.
the one show that like everybody seemed to watch. Like I didn't really watch Friends too much as a little kid, but I remember my parents watching it, and I would kind of watch it with them, even though I wouldn't really understand what was going on.
Hmm.
So,
And who knows if you feel different about it now?
yeah. But This Is Us, I think it's like that one show that like everybody wants to discuss with each other, either on social media or in person once each new episode airs. And like, there's like tons of websites that, do like those recaps where they like write out what happened in the entire episode and everything.
Well, yes. Not to mention they have a very buzzy episode with the Super Bowl.
So yeah, I just think just the buzz around it is going to give it a better chance. And then,
Oh yes, we shall see. And I guess the reason I have the Crown ranked higher than it that is because while the Crown did debut its second season back in the fall, well, I don't know. I guess it does feel a little more. Still does to some extent feel topical given the recent royal wedding with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, but we shall see. But yeah, now on to the outstanding lead actor in a drama series. Okay, my current rankings I have are Sterling K. Brown, This Is Us, Matthew Rhys, The Americans, Milo Ventimiglia, This Is Us, Liev Schreiber, Ray Donovan, Jeffrey Wright, Westworld, and Kit Harington, Game of Thrones.
all right, I have I have a I have 5 out of the 6, but very different rankings.
Hmm.
So I have Sterling K. Brown in first place again, but I actually have Milo Ventimiglia in second place, then Matthew Rhys in third, but then I more for the Good Doctor in fourth, then Jeffrey Wright in fifth, and Kit Harington in sixth.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, yeah, and I guess whenever you have well, I guess whenever I'm predicting, well, I have multiple nominees from the same thing in my predictions. I usually like to put something in the middle. That way, in case of vote splitting, there'd be, well, I have something, and well, 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 yeah. I mean, I guess, well, again with even well. Yes, and I guess if vote splitting were to happen, I could maybe see it going to Matthew Rhys, given that, again, it's the final season of The Americans, so this is the last chance Emmy voters have to award him, well, at least his performance on the show. But yeah, well, Liev Schreiber has been nominated for every previous season of Ray Donovan's, and I guess it's one of those things where, look, I'm not gonna predict him to miss until he actually does, and and Jeffrey Wright. Well, it was interesting because well because unlike last year where he was competing in supporting, he's competing as lead this year. Well, I mean Westworld very much is an ensemble piece, but I guess he is kind of more of a lead character this season, and and not to mention previous Emmy winner and Kit Harington, he's made the cut before in supporting, so it should be interesting to see if he can be able to do so in the lead. But again, given how big Game of Thrones is, well, it would be foolish for me not to predict him. And Freddie Highmore, well, he is someone I could see making the cut. I mean, despite mixed reviews, critical reviews, the Good Doctor has. I mean, Highmore has received a lot of claims for his performance, and he's someone I could see sneaking in. And then again, I could also see Jason Bateman getting in, given not only the attention he received for his performance on Ozark, but also, as director of a couple episodes and executive producer of that series as well. So it's something he really believes in. Although Ozark, well, isn't like one of the buzziest shows on Netflix, and the first season debuted like last summer, and season 2 won't be start streaming until next month. So I just think it seems likely that show's going to get lost in the shuffle at this point. And then again, you also have J.K. Simmons, who plays a dual role on Starz' first-year series Counterpoint.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the case of Jason Bateman, I think he's going to get left out, not necessarily because of the show, but because of what happened when he was being interviewed with his Arrested Development co-stars by the New York Times, in which he
All
and his
right.
male co-stars
Talked about Jeffrey
gaslit
Tambor.
poor Jessica Walter while trying to defend Jeffrey Tambor, because Jessica Walter was talking about how there was a time where she and Jeffrey Tambor had an argument, and he like got in her face and just verbally assaulted her basically, and she said that was like the worst professional experience she's ever had in her long career. And they were trying to say, and her Jason Bateman and all her other male co-stars were trying to say, oh, it wasn't that bad, it wasn't like that. And a lot of people slammed them online for that, and they apologized, but some people felt their apologies weren't good enough. So, and just given Jeffrey Tambor's controversial reputation now, it's kind of now spilled over. So
Well, yeah,
now if
because apparently wasn't spilled over as much earlier in the year when Bateman was nominated at SAG and the Globes.
well, that was before, but that was before Jeffrey Tambor was officially fired from Transparent. So, and that was before this interview happened. So
Well,
there's
yes,
that.
that's kind of what I was referring to.
But then, as with Freddie Highmore, I think he has a chance of being nominated. I think because despite The Good Doctor just getting kind of so reviews, he's giving a positive representation of a group that often isn't positively portrayed in film or television, and that's the autistic community.
Yeah.
Because when most people think of an autistic character, they'll almost always think of Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, and that was 30 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
that's only one type of autism.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like there are maybe some smaller films and TV shows that portray the various ranges of autism, but usually, though, whenever it's portrayed, how they portray it, such as how they portrayed it in this 2016 horror film, The Darkness.
Hmm. Well,
Those
yes, and not to mention Freddie Highmore is a Brit playing an American, so there's some. So of course he has to do an American accent. Well, I mean, not sure. Well, that really means much, but at least, I mean, I guess it shows. I guess his. Well, I mean. I guess it's just something worth noting, and I doubt it will really mean much whether he gets in or not.
True, but we've seen Emmy voters love the medical ensemble shows like St. Elsewhere and ER and Chicago Hope and Grey's Anatomy, because those actors often always got nominated, or at least they did when their shows were at their peak.
Yeah, because Grey's Anatomy clearly hasn't been nominated in recent years.
Right. But like St. Elsewhere back in the 80s, that was nominated for like a good chunk of the actors for almost its entire run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. So I guess now on to a lead actress in the drama series. I believe it's your turn.
Yep. So my rankings are Elizabeth Moss, The Handmaid's Tale; Claire Foy, The Crown; Mandy Moore, This Is Us; Kerry Russell, The Americans; Evan Rachel Wood, Westworld; and Sandra Oh, Killing Eve.
Oh, interesting. I have 5 of the same you're predicting. I have Elizabeth Moss. I think especially having yeah, I think she has especially from what I've been seeing on The Handmaid's Tale, it seems she has a great shot at repeating here. But I also have Claire Foy, who did manage to upset Moss at SAG for the second season of The Crown, albeit she was up against Moss for the first season of The Handmaid's Tale. And not to mention that this is their Emmy voters' last chance to really award Foy's performance on The Crown before Olivia Colman takes over as Queen Elizabeth. And third, I have Evan Rachel Wood for Westworld, pretty much because, the second season of Westworld, just ended more recently. So, and fourth place, Kerry Russell for The Americans. Fifth place, Mandy Moore for This Is Us. I do think she'll be more likely to get nominated this year, unlike last year. And sixth place, Emilia Clarke for Game of Thrones. And kind of like my points on Kit Harington in the previous category, Clarke has been nominated for supporting in the past, so she is untested in how she would do a getting nominated and lead. But then again, like Donald Glover, she was also just in Solo: A Star Wars Story.
I was considering putting her in the last slot, but then Killing Eve just kind of came out of nowhere and started gaining all this momentum, and it got a ton of nominations at the Television Critics Association Awards. And while those don't always translate to Emmy nominations, it kind of represents that the show is getting some attention. Plus, Sandra Oh has the potential to make history by being the first Asian woman nominated in this category ever.
Well,
I
yeah,
believe.
because yeah, I know she was nominated 5 times before for Grey's Anatomy, but I believe that was in supporting.
Yeah, she was.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that voters will at least they'll recognize her from Grey's Anatomy and all her other work that she's done. And we've seen they've obviously warmed up to some BBC America shows eventually, such as when they finally nominated and then actually awarded Tatiana Maslany for Orphan Black after critics and fans kept saying, "Please nominate her, just give her the Emmy because she plays 7 different characters."
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
You
I
know,
guess uh-huh.
so so if like they were able to put Orphan Black on such a small network, I can see them paying attention to a show like this as well. And, especially since, again, this is a show dealing with women and professions that we usually only see men in on TV. You have a spy and an assassin trying to kill said spy. In most movies and TV shows, it's always usually both characters are almost always usually men. So it's kind of some voters may feel it refreshing to see both of them be women this time around.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I guess someone else I could see sneaking in is Laura Linney for Ozark, given that she received the SAG nomination earlier this year for her performance on that show. Not to mention that she has also won 4 times before out of her 5 previous nominations, so she is an Emmy darling.
True, but again, I think just Ozark's kind of meh reception overall, and just
As
the
well as
whole
well,
as well as the whole Jason Bateman Arrested Development controversy that just may make Emmy voters want to turn away from it.
mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's a good point. As well as the fact that, again, Ozark isn't really as fresh into the public's, minds recently, given that the first season premiered, long ago, and season 2 won't even debut until next month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now on to supporting actor in a drama series. The current rankings I have are David Harbour, Stranger Things, Peter Dinklage, Game of Thrones, Justin Hartley, This Is Us, Noah Schnapp, Stranger Things, Mandy Patinkin, Homeland, and Nikolai Kozner-Waldau, Game of Thrones. I tried best I could pronouncing his name.
It's pretty close. So I have the same top 5, but and I wrestled back and forth between my 6th place, but I decided to play the rule of, when you get more acclaim, you get more actors being nominated. So therefore, my my 6th place prediction is actually Joseph Fiennes for The Handmaid's Tale.
He's someone I could totally see sneaking in, given, I guess, the momentum the Handmaid's Tale's been receiving this past year. And, he's totally great on the show, so I'd totally be happy to see him nominated. But then again, other people I could potentially see sneaking in is Noah Emmerich for The Americans, given that, this is the last chance he has getting a nomination for his role as Stan Beeman. And though, then again, Brendan Fraser has earned a lot of acclaim for his performance on Trust, which many people felt was a big comeback for him. And then again, you have Anthony Hopkins, who managed to make the cut as lead last year for Westworld. And who knows if he could do it again for supporting, especially since, I don't want to give too much away, but a lot of people did not expect him to return this season, given a certain fate his character had last season. But then again, this is Matt Smith's final season on the crown before Tobias Menzies takes over as Prince Philip for the next 2 seasons, and this is the last chance the actors branch has to really recognize Smith's performance.
Yeah, I just think Joseph Fiennes has the best chance because I think with The Handmaid's Tale still being highly well acclaimed, they'll not only want to recognize the women in the cast, but at least some of the men as well. And we know that Emmy voters love nominating and sometimes rewarding vicious, unlikable villains, which Joseph Fiennes can count as, since as Commander Waterford in The Handmaid's Tale, he's like the worst kind of man you can imagine. He's the kind of man who Donald Trump would probably applaud for his actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I may now feel a little tempted to put him in my predictions, but I don't know if I will yet. But we shall see. So I guess now on to drama supporting actress.
All right, so my rankings are as follows: Ann Dowd, The Handmaid's Tale; Tandy Newton, Westworld; Chrissy Metz, This Is Us; Millie Bobby Brown, Stranger Things; Lena Headey, Game of Thrones; and Alexis Bledel, The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay, I have the same exact line. Well, almost the exact same lineup. The only difference are the top two. Although I could see Ian Dowd repeating. I mean, I mean, it should be interesting. And no, I guess I have Tandy Newton in first place right now. Well, I guess kind of because let's see. Well, again, Westworld recently concluded its second season, so at least will be more fresh into Emmy voters' minds this time around, unlike last year when the series premiered in the fall. But yeah, again, I could totally see Endowed repeating, and in fact, it should be interesting because Alexis Bledel did manage to win for The Handmaid's Tale last year as a guest actress, and this year she's competing and supporting. So it should be interesting to see if Dowd could still win, or if she could be at risk of vote splitting, assuming both her and Bledel make the cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in fact, I guess other people I could see potentially sneaking in is Uzo Duba, who's won twice before in two separate categories for her role as Crazy Eyes on Orange is the New Black, or Vanessa Kirby for The Crown, given that, like Matt Smith, this is her final season on the show before Helena Bonham Carter takes over as Princess Margaret. But then, and again, this is the last chance Emmy voters have to really recognize her. Though, then again, Margot Martindale has surprisingly won as a guest actress twice for her role as Claudia on The Americans. And since this is the last time she'll be in contention for that role, I mean, could she sneak in? I wonder if she could sneak in this year, unlike last year. But again, of course, as we talked about with her show gaining more acting nominations as it goes on, The Handmaid's Tale. I mean, Yvonne
Strahovski.
yeah, Yvonne Strahovski could sneak in. But then again, last time Game of Thrones was in contention, Maisie Williams managed to receive a nomination for performance as Arya Stark. So those are the ladies all the ladies I can think of that could potentially sneak in this year.
Maybe potentially we could also see what's her name? Holly Taylor from The Americans. I know a lot of people have always praised her performance as the daughter on the show.
Hmm.
Who else was I just thinking of? Oh, I remember last year a lot of people were upset Ryder didn't make the cut for Stranger Things, so
Oh. But
maybe
isn't she competing as lead this year?
oh, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but I thought I remember seeing that all the Stranger Things casts submit themselves as supporting because they view themselves as an ensemble, but I
Yeah.
could be wrong because
Well,
I know for a while because I know the Modern Family cast have always submitted themselves as supporting rather than lead because they never felt one of them was more important than the other.
yeah, at least according to the Gold Derby Prediction Center, Winona Ryder is competing as lead for Stranger Things this year.
Hmm.
Eligible at least.
Oh, all right. Who else? There was another person I was thinking of who would just slip my mind. Oh, who was it? I can't remember. I was going to say Yvonne Strahovski before you brought her up because I know a lot of people felt she was snubbed last year. I remember
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were thinking she should have been nominated instead of Samira Wiley. And I remember a lot of people thinking Samira Wiley should have been nominated for Orange is the New Black instead of The Handmaid's Tale, but I thought she was deserving of her nomination.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess now on to guest actor in a drama series. Okay, the current lineup I have is Gerald McRaney, This Is Us; Ron Cephas Jones, This Is Us; Cameron Britton, Mindhunter; Jimmy Simpson, Westworld; Alan Alda, The Good Fight; and Matthew Good, The Crown.
All right, so I have the same top three of Gerald McRaney, Ron Cephas Jones, and Cameron Britton, but then I have Matthew Good in fourth place, Jimmy Simpson in fifth place, and then in sixth place I have Michael C. Hall for The Crown.
Oh, interesting. So explain that.
Well, I mean, he has been nominated several times in the past for both 6 Feet Under and Dexter, and in The Crown, he's playing an iconic American figure, John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's pretty much it.
Well, yeah, he is someone I could totally see sneaking in, and I don't believe you have Alan Alda in your predictions.
No, just because The Good Fight really hasn't generated a lot of awards attention. And I know Alan Alda can sometimes sneak in when on shows that don't really get a lot of attention, like The Blacklist a few years ago. But given that this is a streaming show on a lesser well known streaming platform, CBS All Access, that makes me wonder how many Emmy voters are actually watching the show.
Well, I believe it. Well, uh, now I don't. Oh, now I don't believe the good. I don't believe the Good Fight even got a guest acting nomination last year, didn't it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I believe it only got one nomination below the line. But then again, as you mentioned, Alan Alda's managed to sneak in before, and he's a legend, a veteran. So I guess he shouldn't be counted out entirely. But we shall see. And now, I guess the question I have is, why do you have Matthew Good ranked higher than me?
Well, just because I haven't really seen a lot of these guest performances, so I'm kind of just going by Gold Derby's rankings. So I can only I just know that Matthew Good had a bigger role on The Crown than Michael C. Hall, so that's kind of why I have him higher.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So I guess now on to okay, now on to guest acting and drama guest actress. What are your rankings?
All right, so I have Diana Rigg, Game of Thrones; Samira Wiley, The Handmaid's Tale; Cicely Tyson, How to Get Away with Murder; Marissa Tomei, The Handmaid's Tale; Cherry Jones, The Handmaid's Tale; and Pam Grier, This Is Us.
Okay, I have the exact same lineup for the top five, although no, then again, I at sixth place I actually have Margot Martindale for The Good Fight, even though again I could see what we just talked about regarding The Good Fight. Well, then again, no, again as we talked about before, Margot Martindale has surprisingly won this category twice for the Americans, despite from what I've been hearing, were only like 2-minute appearances.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just said Pam Grier there just because, again, This Is Us. It's gotten way more buzz in its second season than it did its first. And Pam Grier herself is a legend in her own right. So I don't believe she's ever been nominated for an Emmy before. I could be wrong. I mean, when most people think of Pam Grier, they think of her, black exploitation roles from the 70s. So the fact that this role is obviously much different from that could maybe make voters go, "Oh, wow, she has a lot of range as an actress."
Yeah, well, no, she apparently has never been nominated for a Primetime Emmy. She was nominated for a Daytime in 2000 for Happily Ever After, Fairy Tales of Every Child, but no, never been nominated for Primetime, so.
Better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. and you know, she is totally someone I could see potentially sneaking in. Though I guess Viola Davis could also sneak in for or guest starring as her How to Get Away with Murder character in Scandal.
Hmm. Well, but then again, Scandal's kind of fallen off the Emmy radar in recent years, so I don't really see much chance for that.
Well, yeah, even though this is the final season, yeah, I agree with you. There doesn't seem to be much hope for it at this point.
Hmm.
Okay, so now we've covered all the drama categories. So I guess before we go, what are, I guess, some unexpected nominees? Well, some candidates that you're not expecting to get nominated, but would be happy to see get recognized Thursday morning.
Uh, Trying to think. Mm, well, I remember that actress who played Deja and This Is Us. I believe her name is Lyric Ross. If she were somehow to pull off a nomination, that'd be nice.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's all I can really think of at this point.
Yeah, and let's see. I guess I don't really know. I mean, I guess I'd be happy if Matt Smith and or Vanessa Kirby end up getting nominated this year for The Crown, given that this is their last chance to do so. Though I'm not expecting it, but if they do get nominated, I'd be happy that they were recognized for their overall individually for once at a major award show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now I'm about to end our discussion on the drama categories. We'll be back soon with our discussion on the limited series TV movie categories.